Well, hello once again, AB Calculus students. We're ready to look at how to score these last 4 questions of the 2016 multiple choice. So let's go ahead and let's get ready to look at these, starting with question number 4. Remember, you should be looking at this after you finish these questions, and you're looking at this for how to score your questions. So notice what we have here. We have a differential equation. This is our differential equation problem. You should recognize that. So in part A, it wants us to sketch the slope field. So here's the way you score your work for part A. You have 6 points at which you have to sketch your slope field. If you get that there are 0 slopes at both the origin and to 0, you get 1 point if you have 0 slopes in both of those places. Then on these other 4, where there should be non-zero, both of these must be negative, both of these must be positive. And this one needs to be less steep than this one, just like this one needs to be less steep than this one. So if you have all those characteristics there for those 4, you have them where the correct sign and then the correct steepness, you get the extra point there. For B, you need to go ahead and get a tangent line and then use it to approximate. So first, you have to plug in the given point for x and for y in order to get your derivative, which is 9. Use that to get your tangent line. Your tangent line equation would be y minus 3 is equal to 9 times x minus 2. Or you could go ahead and write it as y equals 9x minus 15. If you do have it simplified, you must simplify correctly. Every form has to be correct for you to get that equation for the point for the tangent line equation. And then when you substitute in, you should get 3.9. This, you don't have to actually put 3.9. You can leave it just like this. But if you do simplify, you must simplify correctly to 3.9. Okay, for part C, this is your solving the separable part where you get the particular solution. So here's what you have to have. First, you must separate your variables. So you must have this dy over y squared equals dx over x minus 1. Okay, so we have our separation of variables. That gets us 1 point if we just remember to separate them. Then we have to integrate both sides. And if we do the correct anti-differentiation, the correct integration, and get negative 1 over y, that gets us 1 point. And if we do this one correct and get the natural log of the absolute value of x minus 1, we do that one correctly, we get that point. The plus, we also need a plus c. Okay, if we substitute in 3 for y and 2 for x and calculate c of negative 1/3, that gets us our 4th point. And then if we actually solve it correctly for y and express it in this form here, or we could call it, they'd equally accept it if you call it 3 over 1 minus 3 natural log x minus 1. That gets you your 5th point. So that's the way you score that one. You don't have to include the range on which the solution is valid. Okay, question 5. We have our wonderful little funnel. Kind of a cool question. So the first thing we're asked to do is we're asked to find the average value of the radius of the funnel. That's just the average value of this function. So that's the integral divided by the interval. So here we see what we've got. You get 1 point for the correct integral. That's correct limits, 0 to 10. And then this expression right here. That gets you 1. If you correctly anti-differentiate, so you get this expression, that gets you the 2nd point. And then if you actually plug in correctly the 10 and a 0 to evaluate, notice you can leave it like this, or if you simplify, you must get this. So even if you have this correct, but then you incorrectly simplify, you lose the answer point. Then for B, we're going to ask to find the volume of the funnel. So this is going to be cross-sectional area. We know the cross-sections are circles. So we know that we have to integrate 0 to 10 of pi r squared, and r, notice, is given by this equation here. Pi can be inside or outside, that's fine. You get 1 point for having this correct thing squared. The 1 over 20 times the 3 plus h squared, that's squared. Okay, I had to pause the video there, but I believe we left off here, so we have 1 point for the correct integrand and 1 point for the correct antiderivative, which is right here. And then if we evaluate correctly with 10 to 0, or 0 to 10, we get this. This gets you full credit, even if you leave it like that. But if you simplify, you must simplify correctly to this. Okay, moving on to part C. Part C, we have to do, it's a related rate. We must take the derivative with respect to t. When we do that, we get dr dt is equal to the 1/20th 2h, and then we have to have this factor of dh dt right there. So you get 2 points. If you get the 1/20th 2h, that would get you one of the 2 points, but you have to have your dh dt in order to get your second point, to recognize that you have to use that chain rule piece there. And then plugging in correctly, we get our answer of -2/3. Okay, score that out of 9. And now we're moving to question 6. So question 6, we have this chart. And so we see that we've got, for part A, we know we've got a function k that is f of g of x. And we want to write the equation for the tangent line at x of k for x equal to 3. So a tangent line, we need to know both a point and a slope. So to get a slope, we must take the, well, first it looks like we'll get the point. So k of 3 is going to be found by doing f of g of 3. So if I put 3 into the function of g, notice I would get a value of 6. And then if I put 6 into the function of f, I would get 4. So notice there, for an x of 3, I get a y value of 4. That makes my point 3, 4. And then I have to get my slope. My slope requires chain rule. So I know the derivative of k is going to be the derivative of the inside function g times the derivative of f with the g left alone. So g of 3 would give me 6, so I would get f prime at 6. So f prime at 6 is going to be 5. And then g prime of 3 is going to be 2. So substituting in there, I've got the 5 times 2 or 10. So I have a slope of 10 and a point of 3, 4. So the equation for my tangent line is going to be y minus 4 equals 10 times x minus 3. Or you could write it like this, or you could also write it as y equals 10x minus 26. That would also work. So you get 2 points for getting that slope at 3, and then 1 for your tangent line. All right, part B. Part B now says we have a function h that is g of x divided by f of x. And we need to find h prime at 1. So first we have to do h prime, which is going to require us to use our quotient rule. So our quotient rule is going to have us do our derivative of our top function g times our bottom function minus the derivative of our bottom function f times our top function g, all over the f squared. So if we see this correct expression here, using the quotient rule, some way that we can see that we have the quotient rule, that's worth 2 points. And then if we actually look on the chart to get these values correctly and get our -3 over 2, by the way, we don't have to simplify. We could leave it just like this. Just like that's going to get us our answer point. Finally, for C, what we see we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to evaluate this integral of the second derivative of f at 2x. So in order to do this, we're going to have to do this integration, we're going to have to use u substitution. U is going to be 2x. So my du is going to be 2dx. So I'm going to have to go ahead, when I substitute in, that gives me this 1/2 out here when I integrate. So I integrate the second derivative, gives me the first derivative with the 2x. Notice if I take the derivative of this, I would get back to this. because I would do chain rule. The 2 would cancel out with a 1/2, and I would just get f double prime of 2x. This is evaluated from 1 to 3, so when I substitute in the 3, I get f prime of 6. Now when I put in the 1, I get f prime of 2. Both these things are found in my chart. So I look in my chart, find those values of 5 and -2, evaluate. I could leave it like this. I can't leave it like this, but I could leave it like this, or write it as 7/2, and that gets me the 3 points. Okay, score that 1 out of 9, score the whole thing out of 27, and you've got it set. Looks like we will plan on moving on to multiple choice tomorrow. Okay, hope things are going well.